Hello and welcome to today's webinar. And my name is Bobby Toulis. I'm Group Marketing Director for GFS, and it's my pleasure to be presenting today with Al Keck, who's founder and CEO of Infinity Nation. Hello, Al.
Hi, Bobby. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Right, okay. Al, do you want to quickly tell us about Infinity Nation? Not that people don't know who you are, be surprised if they don't, but for those that perhaps don't.
Sure, thanks. Yes, we are Infinity Nation. We are a digital and e-commerce growth partner. We work with retailers to be an extension of their team, but really focus down on data as the key navigator to helping them find their growth strategies. So we're not just let's spend more money with Google, that can be an output of it, but really want to align with their business growth aspirations to identify where there's low-hanging fruit, opportunities for improvement, and really sort of come at it from a cost of acquiring a customer and customer lifetime value building focus.
Now, thank you very much for that, Al. And this webinar is all around bringing together the marketing and the operations side of the businesses to really drive that growth around peak. So what you do as Infinity Nation is absolutely vital in supporting retailers. So let me now flip over to GFS. GFS, as I said, we are the industry's now largest provider of multi-carrier services. We set up back in 2001, so we've got more than 20 plus years of experiencing peak and dealing with all the challenges that peak brings. But this is really when we come into our strength and work closely with our retailers. We provide over 1,000 shipping services all under one roof across all different carriers. We ship across 220 and more destinations, both UK and globally. And each year we manage more than 35 million parcels. So, you know, it really is our passion to make sure parcels get to where they need to be from checkout to doorstep and back again. So what we'll cover. We'll start off by getting to grips with Black Friday 2024, looking at what the backdrop might be like and what we might be expecting this year in terms of retail sales and consumer and customer behaviors. Then we're going to flip over to marketing mastery, and Al's going to take us through the checklist and countdown for maximizing online engagement and sales. Then the other side of the coin, of course, is making sure that we go through the same kind of diligence and look at delivery excellence, the checklist and countdown for getting delivery and operations ready for peak. And we'll be rounding it up with some real life case studies. So Al's going to be talking about green feathers. And I'm delighted to say that we've actually got Hannah Leah talking to us about who is operations director for hampers.com. And hampers.com are an absolutely exceptional case when it comes to delivery excellence and preparing for peak, because over 70% of their sales come through peak period. So it's about 4 weeks of the year. So Hannah's going to be taking us through how she approaches planning delivery for peak. Right, Al, you probably recognize some of these headlines. I've pulled out some press clippings which I think tell a story and really set the tone for Black Friday 2024. So at the beginning of the year, if you go move from left to right, at the beginning of the year, it really was looking very challenging after a pretty flat Q4 trading, November, December, and the outlook was looking quite challenging for retailers in 2024. A lot of that was coming from interest rates going up and this having a really sharp impact on household finances and their spend. Consequently, we saw the retails fall to their, having the sharpest drops. I think that was back in January, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
And that was really bad. And then in May, not too long ago, we saw the annual report come out from Retail Economics that basically said that even those customers that were still buying online one in four of them were abandoning their baskets at the online checkout simply because they weren't being offered the delivery options they needed, which is quite shocking. Um, that theme sort of continued with the Times covering the same article. I've put up there the reminder from last year, if you remember, which was a spanner in the works when Royal Mail went on strike over Black Friday in peak and the disruption that caused. So just a reminder for everyone that there's always going to be a surprise that comes up in at peak. So always plan for the unexpected.
Is that
And then
two
we've got
years?
some,
Is,
yeah,
is that 2 years in a row then? Because there was the 22 was also really bad,
yeah,
and that's when
yeah,
that's when working with people like you was so advantageous because of that Royal Mail piece. Then others like DPD got spiked out. So
yeah.
the ability to switch between couriers to get those parcels out was vital in terms of business success.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was in 2022. And I guess the point here that, what I said earlier, getting delivery right over that peak period is equally about planning for contingency. You're always having your plan B because yes, there's always going to be that unexpected thing that happens, whether it's Royal Mail going on strike or bad weather. Something always happens every year with bad weather. So being able to have that plan B to fall back on and know what you're going to do in that situation is really vital to protect delivery and sales. But then now we've got it looks like we've got some sunshine coming through with consumer confidence started edging up in April. This was the Consumer Confidence Index. I can't remember exactly what that was, but that's when we started seeing confidence beginning to edge up.
I think it was coming out of a very wet and dingy winter, and we had some early sunshine.
Yeah. And the good news is that consumer confidence has continued to go up month on month from April, May, June. And the latest one in July is reporting the consumer confidence index is the highest it's been in nearly 3 years. And that's been impacted not only by good weather, but now that we've got a new government in place.
Yeah,
But, I think you'd agree, Al, that okay, we went from a pretty dark picture to now things beginning to look a bit more optimistic. However, the cost of living crisis and interest rates have still not eased up. So this is still beginning to have an impact on consumers being far more cautious, having less money to spend, and being more cautious around what they do spend their money on. And also this continuing potential loss at the checkout or this hidden loss of consumers abandoning their baskets. Even if you manage to get them to the checkout, then losing it at the final hurdle because they don't see the delivery options that they expect to see, at which point they abandon their baskets and shop elsewhere.
I don't think you can ever class performance in general, and definitely Black Friday as being a success till the parcel's delivered to the consumer. I think a lot of
Absolutely.
people will focus on driving traffic to the website and achieving turnover, but
Yeah.
it's just as important that the last mile delivery process happens well. Otherwise, you put a ton of effort into getting people to the website, getting them through the website, showing them the reasons to check out. And I think delivery is key, and having those different options available to meet different consumer needs.
Yeah.
But if then the parcel gets delivered and it's chucked over the fence, or I'm not saying that, but those sorts of things, that is
Mm,
how memorable you are as a brand. Did my parcel turn up
absolutely.
well? Did it turn up on time? Did I have to chase it?
Yeah.
Has a massive
Yeah.
weighting and lenience to will I buy from that brand again or not?
Exactly. Hence, you've just hit the nail on the head, Al, which is what we're trying to put across in this webinar, isn't it? That
Yep.
A lot of retailers, brands are going to be spending so much money in around Black Friday and in the final quarter, trying to get to compete for that precious spend, to
Yes.
compete to get customers to their website, to choose them, bring them to their website. And like you said, if sales and marketing and the operations side aren't joined up, so to provide that seamless experience so that when that customer comes to the checkout, they are satisfied with the delivery options that are offered to them so that they convert at that point, great, tick in the box. But then, like you said, Al, as far as the customer is concerned, if the post-purchase experience or delivery experience is bad, then they're not going to buy again. And this does have an impact on the brand as well, and customer loyalty. So
Absolutely.
I think you've put it really succinctly. So let me pass over to you now, Al. Let's focus now on what you need to do in terms of marketing mastery, and then I'll pick up on the delivery side. Of course, both things need to be joined up. So, Al, over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Bobby. So I think, yeah, having been through over a decade of Black Fridays and supporting multiple retailers during this period, I think the period has changed dramatically. It used to be about a 3 or 4 day window. I think in 2023 we really saw a month. I think it was the first time I've ever seen promotions and offers being launched pre fireworks night. I think that's historically that's always been
Mm,
fireworks night comes and it goes, and then you see promotions launching. But there was a stark reality for me last year when we were seeing a ton of, and we monitor numerous inboxes and email newsletters to keep an eye on the market. Yeah, just to get so many on. I think Guy Fawkes was on a Sunday, and we were getting quite a lot on the 3rd of November, which was a real surprise for us. But
yeah,
I think in terms of how do you make your Black Friday a success? I mean, ultimately that's down to you as a business. But I think what we definitely have seen, though, the difference between the winners and the losers is a real clarity on what their offers are going to be, what products they're going to sell, how much margin they're going to have on it. So I think just curating offers and being clear on your created offers and buying those potentially is a real focus. That's key. I think those, as we were just touching on then, who have really thought about that in advance can ensure that the website's functionality will meet the demand and make that a slick process. So
mhm,
be that from it's a bundle, you can buy a bundle together, that makes it advantageous price. How is that going to work at the checkout? How does it work with couriers? What payment options have I got? So really understanding the different customer cohorts. I think if we double back on your point on customer pain and the cost of living pain, again, I think there is different cohorts that will feel
mhm.
that pain at different levels. I mean, I'm talking hypothetically, but potentially people of an older generation who may not have a mortgage right now, but may not feel that pain as much as younger
Mm.
generations. So it's again trying to think about who are the audiences that we're trying to talk to, what's their need, what's the offers that they're going to be compelling to them. Pareto's law in all that I've ever done is there's going to be 20% of product range that's going to be driving 80% of sale. Do we
Yeah,
need to just do a X percentage off site wide, or would people be buying those anyway? So are we giving needless margin away where we don't need to, and thus we're making ourselves less profitable? So I think a real business consultation between marketing, how we're going to promote this, what we're going to promote, buying, what is our product, what are we promoting, and why? How does that meet with our customer cohorts? And then operationally, how are we going to deliver it? I think is really important. And we've put 12 plus weeks before. I think that's 12 plus weeks before we plan to launch, to really building that roadmap in the run up to Christmas and Black Friday. The reason I say Christmas is I think last year I would say a lot of people didn't really analyze the trading plan in the run up to Christmas. So last year Black Friday was, I'm going to put myself out there, say it's a bit limp, even though a lot of people went early. I think people went early, but there was no real, or a lot of people didn't really commit to saying these are our best offers. They won't be beaten. So I think there wasn't per se the consumer confidence to buy early in November because when we were talking to people, there was like, we can see the offer, but, A, it's sort of after payday. B, I could buy now, but then they might trump this offer on Black Friday, so I'll just hang out. So I think going back to your basket abandonment point, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people were building shopping lists. We're saying, all right, who
Yeah.
am I buying for? When am I buying? But we're just almost building those lists and then using that Black Friday period to sort of do the buy now.
Mm.
I think there was just a bit of a lack of trust of offers that were promoted earlier in the month, whether they were going to be the best. So I think there's something for the retailers to consider. If you're going earlier with your offers, being really clear that it won't be beaten, and if
A big chumped.
sometimes
Yeah.
retail there has a problem and you have to, that you're committing that you'll give the difference back or whatever it may be. So I think that's really key. I think the other one was last year. There was 5 trading weekends, if I remember correctly, in
Mm.
the run up to Christmas. So you got to Black Friday. It wasn't on a payday weekend, which we've seen 3 or 4 years ago, and that does hamper it. But I think it hampered it more last year with this cost of living crisis that people didn't want to load credit cards. Is the feeling that
Yeah.
we were getting. And so people were like, well, I don't really want to put this on my credit card. I'll wait to payday weekend, which was the weekend after Black Friday.
Mm.
And at that point, there were still multiple weekends into Christmas. So it's almost, you got to Black Friday last year and go, oh, I feel miles away. This year, it's 3 weekends after Black Friday. So I think it'll be a lot more focused period. It's on a
Far more
payday
intense.
weekend.
Yeah.
And so I think retailers just need to plan and map that out as part of this overall objective and goal setting. Just
Mm.
really sort of trying to understand, like, why do I need to act now? What is my plan up for Black Friday, and how does that run into Christmas? Again, to deal with what you were saying earlier, is like my early buyers and my last minute buyers. I think
Yes,
just
we're
last year
always
that
going
was
to
just a
see
bigger
that.
window.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talked about deciding promotions. I think being really clear on where we can afford to give margin away, and where we might not need to because they're hero products, they're in high demand. And then we said email campaigns, but I think it's complete sort of digital marketing. When
Absolutely.
do I
Yeah.
start seeding and analyzing? One of the things we would be looking at is like who bought last Black Friday, but we've never heard from them since. We would treat them as a different email segment and talk to them in a different way to a regular customer. And
Mm.
likewise, we might use that data to also then build back awareness of those people that haven't bought for a year, be more
Yeah.
on social, building the social awareness. So I mean, I think a lot of people, I don't know what you're like, Bobby, I'm probably a bit
Mm.
lastminute.com, but I know a lot of people that will start looking in maybe August, July, August sales, but then really start looking in September, post sort of kids going back to school, sort of building that shopping list.
Yeah.
And if offers
Yeah.
are good or they peak interest, I think again with cost of living, people don't want this expensive, really tight period, and are starting to consider spreading
Spreading the cost. Yeah,
spreading the cost.
absolutely.
So again,
Yeah.
how are you front of mind? How are you in that sort of upper funnel shopping window phase to be a point of consideration for these consumers to come and
Yeah.
buy from you? And then I think align with sales forecast with the ops team. It's no good going, we're going to go do these great promotions, not tell the warehouse or your 3PL, not work with your couriers to say, this is our plan. And again, I
Yeah.
think that was weak last year from a lot of retailers and partners that I spoke to. There was
Yeah.
sort of a lacking of commitment. It's very hard for them to resource accordingly.
Absolutely. And from we know that carriers year on year, they lock down their forecasts and their plans by the end of September, and I'll come on to that. But in terms of the impact it has on your warehouse and the ops team, it's also about if it's about getting not having plans or getting the plans wrong, which means not just under capacity but also over capacity,
Yeah,
that's going to cost your business, whether it's in lost sales or unnecessary costs that you've built, that you've built into your plan.
yeah, and I think, but also by having the plan is you've got some structure and look, things might fly. I mean, it was years ago. Was it the Furbies? I can't remember what they were, but they just flew off the shelf and you
Yeah.
couldn't get them anywhere. But if you backed your whole thing behind that and suddenly you're out of stock, you need to manage that accordingly
Mm,
and then go, right, that was our hero product. What's our next one? And how we act dynamically. But I think if everything's done on the fly, it's very
yeah,
hard to be,
absolutely.
non-chaotic.
And that's a really important point that you've mentioned there, Al, from a planning in terms of getting delivered, making sure you're prepared operationally. Yes, you need to have a plan that brings you that the plan that says what you're going to need in terms of capacity, delivery capacity, what services, options, collection times, etc. But once Black Friday promos go live, it's very much about managing that whole piece on a day-to-day basis because it's dynamic.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's years ago since I've been client side, but back then I would have a daily email where I'd have
yeah.
key stakeholders and sort of say, look, this is where we're at from a marketing point of view.
Mm,
You know, this is where we're on stock. How are we looking here? And just everyone is kept in the picture. That like almost like a morning briefing, quick 5 minute
yeah.
email going out. But likewise, we talked about weather before. We would always have a snow email prepped. So if
Yes.
it wasn't, oh, it's snowing and couriers are now struggling, we would have one prepped and saying, look, due to weather forecast, weather that's happening, there may be a slight delay. We just want to tell you it just saved a ton of inbound phone calls of where's
Mm,
my order because you were being
yeah,
prepped and you were allowing for that.
yeah.
So you just kept. And yeah, often I think the frustration from a consumer point is not being kept informed.
Absolutely. Interestingly, research from IMRG, and we concurs with what we think as well. A lot of retailers think that consumers, their customers think a failed delivery is a parcel that never turns up. Well, actually, that's wrong. A failed delivery, as far as the customer is concerned, and this is proven by research, is when a parcel, you haven't told them that a parcel is going to be late or is not going to turn up or whatever. Managing those expectations, if you haven't communicated that to them, then that's when they see it as a failed delivery.
Yeah, completely.
Okay, so that's 12 weeks before. Now we're sort of getting a bit closer, 8 weeks before.
Yeah. So I think really with now you've got a plan, you're clear on the products that you're wanting. I think is then just is say we were talking about a minute ago, just sort of really seeding into people doing their research, looking at what they're going to buy, people just getting that content out there or some great gift ideas or new for
Mm,
this year. It's just really building a focused pool of relevant customers. And I think we just by
yeah,
doing that through organic search, content, might be some offline PR, in buyer's guides, putting stuff out on social media, key products. Yeah, okay. I think a lot of this is where we'd spend quite a bit of time and looking at the different buyer cohorts, who buys what typically. Like this person buys female products, this person typically buys males, this person buying kids. All the retailers sit on a ton of that intelligence. I think it's just then using it
absolutely.
in a smarter way. I sort of call it the show me that you know me mentality. So
I like
better
that.
understanding rather than it being
Yeah,
here's what we've got to offer. It's like, okay,
absolutely.
would you really value me as a customer? Or it's like, oh, we know you like these sorts of products. We thought we'd share with you our latest range, or here's a product that complements what you bought previously. I think it's just showing that next level of loyalty and that you value them as a retailer.
Mm, yeah.
I think the interview we put here 2 weeks before you go live with your Black Friday promotion. So again, last year a lot of people went early. I think it's entirely up to you. I mean, there's always business pressures. If stock levels are high, you're not seeing that turn into cash. The CFO comes and knocks on your door. You're under pressure. I think it's being prepped. But again, if you're prepped for that 12 plus weeks in advance, you know what's going. You can move stuff around more easily. Whereas if you haven't got that plan, it's suddenly you're like, oh, we've got to go live now. I think that the easy one is just to go, oh, let's just do 15% off site wide. And again, come back to that point of, are we just giving needless margin away?
Yeah,
And I think often these sites now have such a vast quantity of stock. Right, I think people still want curated offers, recommendations, suggestions, our buyers' favourites, our team's favourite. I think that still helps people make that
yeah,
buying decision when you're online. When you go into a physical presence, that you can have that interaction. Live chat's getting better, and people can give you those tips that way. But I think, yeah, just be ready to go. Sort of teasing that Black Friday is coming. I mean, that's also a fine line that you don't want to just create a vacuum of no sales because everyone's going, well, I'm just going to vote with my hands and not buy anything right now because I know something's coming. So there's a fine line to navigate here. But yeah, being prepared, getting your campaigns ready,
mm,
getting your ads ready. Again, hopefully you've been learning and testing in terms of ad campaigns and copy that works throughout the year. I
yeah,
mean, we're
yeah,
just about we're in a throw right now of a July August sales where that's a key time to try and test ad copy and building again data pools of people that like to buy during sale times. So
mm,
there should have been a lot of analysis and intelligence that's already happened through 24 that can help you prep for these.
great. So this brings us to 1 week before green light day.
I think double checking your plan, all going, gives you time to make any last minute changes, modifications, bring new product in. There might be a product issue that suddenly you need to change it. So you've got it all planned. Everyone's briefed, be it from your email people, your team, your digital marketing team, your couriers. Everyone's on the same page. They know what's happening. I think the other one is just that website merchandising. Are we really backing and showing to the fore? Again, so you might have to have graphics done. You want to make sure that the product details pages of these promotions that you're going with, everything's on singing. Just
Mm,
sometimes I feel that lacks a little online.
yeah,
It's almost like it's there, people can find it, come and buy it. I think we should still use some of that old school retail sort of physical store mentality of like, oh, here's our best offers, here you might be interested in that. And I think just double checking that and test orders. It still amazes me how many people don't check their own website and do dummy orders to make sure it's all working. I think there's another key one.
okay, Al. So now we're actually in the launch week of the Black Friday offers. What do you need to be thinking about then?
So again, I think you should have done your customer segmentation, so you know your emails that are going out for different cohorts, different offers. Your all your social ads, your PPC ads are all live. So it's now monitoring success, keeping eyes on stock levels, making sure pick pack dispatch isn't falling behind. Again, I think
Mm.
I don't know if it happens as much now, but I remember when I was client side getting a phone call from the warehouse. It was basically like, "What have you done? Get here now." So,
Get down on the floor and help us pack
well,
these
I did
orders.
basically. I took the whole team
Yeah,
down to
yeah.
we were in two separate locations. So we went to the warehouse. I turned up with McDonald's breakfast for all the warehouse people because I could feel that I may be in hot water. But
Yes.
the CEO was
Yeah.
happy because we had driven great revenue, but
Mm.
you know, it'd probably be more successful than we had allowed for. So I think again, it just comes back to these briefings and making sure everyone's on the same page. And do you keep pushing hard? Is this always this dichotomy? Do you keep pushing hard because you're seeing great success, but the warehouse is maybe struggling to catch up? You got to balance that between consumer satisfaction and business drivers. But yeah, so I think it's launch, monitor success. And I think there's got to be, I think a lot of people, again, we were talking about earlier, we might be launching early ads or building upper funnel
Awareness.
awareness
Yeah.
you in October, but you're not necessarily going to see a return on that till the end of November, early December. So sometimes you have to judge this period in a slightly longer window because I think I said earlier, a lot of people we've witnessed in the last couple of years, without a doubt, building baskets but abandoning.
Mm,
So everyone's like, oh,
yeah,
something's happened to the website, conversion rates dropped. But then suddenly, end of November, early December, conversion rate is like double what it normally is. And I think it's literally that people were just building these shopping lists and
yeah,
then coming in and transacting. So I think we just got to really be on top of the data and the numbers and just
absolutely,
seeing how
yeah.
it's going.
And also the data, as you're in Black Friday, but also what you mentioned before is lessons learned from the previous year, looking at the shop, forecasts and sales performance previous year, because that's also going to inform what you expect to happen this year.
Yeah,
So that's really vital. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now let's thank you for that, Al. That's really concise and lots of good tips there and lots of sage advice. Let me now flip over to the operations, the back end of things, and talk about what we need to be focusing on from a delivery perspective. Okay, so time now to look at how we prepare delivery for peak. But before I go into the countdown from a delivery perspective, I want to go back and just reiterate that astonishing figure that we referenced at the beginning of the webinar, which came from the research that was published in May earlier this year by Retail Economics. It was based on a survey that went out to over 2,000 UK consumers. And that headline was that 1 in 4 purchases were being abandoned by shoppers due to inadequate delivery options. So, not for any other reason, but simply because when they got to the checkout page and looked at delivery options, they didn't find the delivery option that they needed. And when that was calculated out, it came to an incredible figure of about 34.2 billion potential in lost sales. So this really does underline why delivery matters, especially during peak when retailers are quite literally banking on their biggest sales going through. So this is a report that came out, so you can see the barcode here. If you would like to read it, then you can scan that code and download the full report. Okay, so delivery excellence, checklist and countdown for best-in-class delivery. Now, as I said, we work with a lot of the big brands across the UK. So what we've got here is really a high-level summary of what we consider best practice. And early planning is absolutely the name of the game. And we see our retailers starting planning as, well, at the latest, really from July onwards. Some of our customers, and you're going to hear later from Hannah Leah from Hampers, she's going to tell you how planning for her is actually an all year round activity. But that's because hampers are a very, very special example. Okay, so July to August, start off by looking at what happened in last year's Black Friday sales and looking at your delivery data, like Al mentioned. Data is absolutely key. Look at your data, analyze your data, look at what it tells you, use that to base your to inform your demand forecast. Very vitally, and that's what this webinar is all about, sit down with your sales and marketing teams. So July, August, which is around now, so around 3-4 months before Black Friday, this is when you really need to understand what promotions they're going to be running, what are their sales forecast, order volumes going to be throughout not just Black Friday, but throughout that golden quarter. That's then going to help you ensure that you've got the right resource in place so that you've got sufficient staffing, packing materials, and very importantly, we start talking to our carriers. So around this time, we are sitting with all our customers and working forensically through their capacity plans, understanding what they're going to need in terms of capacity, what services they want to have in place, what collection times they're going to need, and absolutely importantly, what are the backup plans if things don't work out the way they should be. So the reason why we do that is because come September, carriers are going to be locking in their capacities. So they're going to be looking for their customers to submit their forecasts and plans for peak. So not just for Black Friday, but for the whole of the peak period, which takes us right through December. The reason why it's important to get those plans right is because once those plans have been submitted and carriers have locked in their plans, they lock down capacity. So if you need more capacity past that point, it's going to be very difficult. So make sure that those plans are absolutely robust. Work with your carrier partner to ensure that you've got the scheduling is right for arranging collections. If you need to have more flexible collection facilities, if it's going to be weekends, later cut-off times because you need longer to fulfill orders, then now's the time to be putting in that operational plan as well. And like I said right from the beginning, planning to or failing to plan is planning to fail. We all know that old adage, but also scenario planning is so vital. Work through every single scenario of what can possibly go wrong and make sure that you've got a contingency plan in place. So if this happens, this is what we would do. And one of the really important things where we see carriers getting, where we see brands getting caught out a lot is that they put all their eggs in one basket. So they've got too much dependency on a single carrier. And when the service levels with that carrier isn't as planned, they're then caught in a difficult position and find it very difficult to then be able to recover, to either switch volumes to a different carrier or to find a solution for that. So diversify not only your delivery options, but also your carriers so that you're spreading that risk. And I've highlighted that second point around coordinating with sales and marketing. I thought it was worth just repeating that bit because that's what this webinar is all about. When things go wrong is when marketing and operations are working in silos. So it's really important, if you want to have a stellar peak, make sure that you are working completely in sync with marketing and sales. We're now into October. It's time to make sure that our systems in the warehouse, whether that is labeling, stock order, warehouse management systems, stock management systems, we need to make sure that one, they are working seamlessly, but also they're able to handle much higher loads. Look at how you can automate processes where possible to reduce the manual side of things. So anything that's going to enable you to streamline labeling, invoicing, parcel routing, take advantage of it. And like we said, just as you need backup for carriers, you also need to make sure that you've got backup if anything happens with your systems. We're now entering into actual peak period. So November, whether you're going early before Black Friday itself, or whether you're going, closer, the point is that once those promotions go live, you are now in the thick of it. So make sure that you are working with a carrier partner that is going to be speaking with you every day to understand, how do the volumes look today? How did they look yesterday? Are we still, do we need to make any adjustments in terms of collection times, in terms of capacity? Because it really is a dynamic and things can fluctuate and change. So this is where you really need to have a partner that is proactive, working very closely with you day by day throughout the entire peak operation period, and is going to allow you to make adjustments as and when you need them. So we've managed to get through the brunt of it, which is November, December. There's still some, January sales to get through. But at this point in January, we're now being hit with returns. So make sure that you have your processes and capacities in place for managing returns when they come back in, so that you can quickly turn that stock around and put it back into back into sell and inventory levels. And this is also when, like I said at the beginning, for some of our customers that we work with, planning for peak starts as early as January. As soon as that peak, the previous peak is finished, that's the first point at which they sit down and we start looking at how did it go, analyzing performance, understanding where there were gaps, and identifying where there are areas of improvement for next time. And that continues pretty much into post-peak, February month, where you're really formalizing a lot of those learnings, those key lessons that were learned, identifying where you've got exposure or points of weakness, whether that's in your operations, in your systems, in your carrier plans, or in the carriers that you're using, and use that really to lay the foundation for your plans for the following peak. Okay, so delivery excellence and getting ready for peak isn't just about having a countdown and a checklist. It's really important to have the right strategy behind it. From our perspective, delivery excellence comes down to 5 keys for a winning strategy. The first thing, as we saw from the research, is really put your customer first. Understand that delivery is no longer simply a logistics problem, it's a customer experience problem. And those customers want greater delivery choice and convenience. So in our opinion, the rule of 5, being able to offer the 5 delivery options as a baseline is a good place to start. But it's not just about having 5 options, it's making sure that those options not only include your economy, your free, and your express, but very importantly, you are including premium options like nominated day, nominated time. Those are very, very important. And don't assume that customers are not willing to pay for them, because again, the research shows that customers are willing to pay for that additional choice and convenience. The second thing is just if you need to diversify your carriers and diversify risk and expand delivery options, that means you've got to be working with multiple carriers. However, working with multiple carriers can be complex, costly, and increase overhead across your business. So think about switching from working with multiple carriers to working with a single multi-carrier partner who will give you access to all of those services across all of those carriers, but with less overhead. You can do that through the one relationship. And remember that not all carrier partners are equal. So look for a multi-carrier partner that's going to offer the widest choice of services under one roof and also has very strong relationships and buying power with carriers. Reliability is non-negotiable. So we talked earlier about how a failed delivery for a customer is not when a parcel doesn't turn up, it's when they're not told about it. And customers can be quite tolerant, but what they're not tolerant of is unreliable delivery. So seek solutions where you're going to have built-in contingency to protect delivery when things aren't when you need to take corrective action, but also have with the flexibility, agility to enable you to switch parcel volumes from one service or one carrier to another one in order to resume and protect service levels. Technology is really key, just as working with a single multi-carrier partner is going to give you a much simpler way to be able to offer customers the breadth of services they need without increasing cost and complexity from an operational perspective. It's also important that you've got the supporting multi-carrier technology to streamline and automate those processes. So rather than having multiple labeling platforms one for each carrier or service, you've simply got a single multi-carrier platform, labeling platform. And then finally, don't overlook returns. Treat outbound and inbound equally. Apply the same principles of offering your customers the widest choice of options that you do for when they're for delivery. Apply the same rules for when they're looking to return those items to you. And again, don't default to free. Consumers, again shown by the research, consumers are willing to pay for a seamless, easy returns experience. So we've covered the sort of theory, if you like, in terms of what is the action plan for marketing, the action plan for delivery to have a perfect peak. Now let's look at some real life case studies that have proven the theory and in our eyes have got it right. So Al, why don't you start with green feathers?
Yeah, I think green feathers is a good example. Maybe not a product that everyone is aware of, but you must get one in your garden, Bobby. They're fantastic. So
Yeah.
they are bird boxes, but with CCTV cameras inside them, so you can actually watch the activity inside the bird box. So it's fascinating footage, and if you're into your gardens and wildlife, they are a brilliant product. But green feathers came to us in terms of really wanting to increase their market share, needed to be more savvy online, and so again we sat down and we really understood who the different customer cohorts were, who their audience was. So how do we go and find more of the relevant people that were interested in this type of product? And put together a strategy behind a Black Friday. And I think for me the standout was the 8.7 times total ROAS. So after our fees and management, they got an 8.7 times return on their investment. So I think it was a real win. I think they grew market share. They gained a lot of new customers, and they know with working with us that they're great at turning that initial cost of acquiring a customer into a great customer lifetime value. So they build loyal customers, which makes a more profitable campaign for them. So yeah, no, we improved the account setup. It became more granular so that we could target different audiences with relevant ad copy. So it was a real positive win for them.
Fantastic. And I will go and have a look at this lovely bird box. So thank you for that. Thank you for the tip, Al.
No problem.
So now let's hear from Hannah Leah, who is Operations Director for hampers.com, and what delivery excellence looks like for them. Welcome, Hannah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking about all this with you.
Fantastic. Good. Okay, so over to you.
Okay, so just a really quick overview of who we are as a business. So we're hampers.com. We're a luxury and sustainable gift hamper company, and we've actually been around for over 40 years. It's actually 45 years this summer, which is exciting. Wow. We have a sales volume of about 350 units annually. We have extremely seasonal demand, which I'll cover further on in this presentation. We are passionate about delivering the right thing for our customer and our consumer, and ensuring our gifts are delivered on time is just so crucial for that success. They're very emotive gifts, so making sure that that's done well is really important for us. We're also really proud of being a business of positive change, and we've been carbon neutral since 2022, and we are on the journey to become B Corp certified as well. We're also real living wage employees too. So protecting peak is super critical to us. As you can see from this graph here, these are the sales that we make on month, and December accounts for 75% of our sales in the 1 month. So protecting peak is super crucial to us, because if something goes wrong in this period, it's mission critical to our business. So as a business, planning for peak and making sure nothing goes wrong is an all year round process. So it starts at the beginning of the year, where we review how peak went, what went well and what didn't go well. And then we work with GFS at this stage to, as they're the experts in delivery, to help us with, what carriers performed well, what carriers didn't perform well, look at who's kind of buying our gifts, what appropriate carriers maybe want to change for next year, looking at the SLAs and how the customers and the are receiving the goods and how the delivery partners are performing, and kind of looking at how then we should change up the mix going forward for next year. So as we move through the year, then we implement those changes and those carrier mixes. It's usually quite a good time actually, because we have a very small peak at Father's Day, so then we can implement those changes and see how those perform at a slightly smaller peak. And then, if those work well, then we'll continue those with the rest of the year. The biggest time which is what we're actually going through now, is looking at forecasting for peak. We do all that together as a team, and then we work with GFS of how that then links with all the carrier partners. So who the carriers were we chose earlier in the year, and then how we forecast those in granular detail, so day by day as we get through peak, and all that sort of stuff, which is critical to making sure then peak goes well and we do have enough volume. So then when it comes to Q4 and it gets to December, we actually have daily calls with our GFS account manager, and this is super vital to making sure that we're all on top of what's going out, what's coming in. If potentially we have a huge corporate order that comes in last minute, GFS are there to help with that and adjust to the daily demand changes that we might have. And there's also lots of unexpected things that might happen as well. So we had an example a couple of years ago where we had a small IT failure with our actual dispatch system, and it meant that we had a backlog of deliveries that we needed to make effectively, which caused huge changes within our carrier forecasts. And thankfully, GFS have got that expertise and that knowledge and partnerships with the carriers that enabled us to actually get extra volumes and make sure that we could deliver on our promises to the customers, which is obviously super critical when it comes to that. The event days don't move, so you can't, if Christmas Day is gone, delivering a parcel after that is pretty much of no use, and you get very sad customers at that stage. So making sure that we keep our promises is critical. And this annual planning is something that just continues every year. Continuous improvement is vital for us, and making sure that we're achieving our promises.
That's incredible that it's a 12-month process. It basically doesn't stop, does it?
No, it's Christmas every day here. So the reason for us moving to a single multi-carrier partner is, prior to this, we were working directly with carriers. We also found that mostly it was very expensive. We found that moving to GFS was good for us because they're a much larger company with negotiating power that we don't necessarily have. So we were able to piggyback on their economies of scale with the partner carriers, which is really good for us, especially also being able to understand and translate our peak to the carriers as well. So understanding that we might dispatch 300 units on a day like today, but then we need to be able to dispatch 10,000 units in December, and they were able to really work with our carriers to help work and negotiate on those figures on that basis as well. Also, just the experience and the knowledge that GFS had, it wasn't something we necessarily had internally. So having that middleman between us and the carriers really, really works for us, and it means we don't have to have specific logistics experts within our business as a small business. That's really good. So overall, it saves us a huge amount of money. It also saves us time as well, because we can go directly to them and they sort all our problems out. So if we have an issue, we go to our account manager, and she's very quick and efficient to get that sorted for us and find a solution. It also enables us to have a huge choice on our various types of customers. We have corporate customers, we have customers that might want something really urgently, so we can offer pre-12 delivery. We might have customers who are more organised and actually just want a named day in the future and can afford to have a slightly cheaper price. So it gives us that ability in our checkout and gives us that technology solution to enable customers to have a varied choice of what they want for their gift. And usually with gifts, there is a specific day it needs to get there by as well. So it just enables us to do that. And it just gives us that flexibility as well. I mentioned that issue we had a couple of Christmases ago where we had our system failure and we needed extra carriers. We were able to move actually some of the forecasts onto additional from Every to DHL. Especially that year as well. Everyone remembers 2022. We also had the Royal Mail strikes as well.
Yeah.
So we were able, because of GFS's, relationships with the carriers, we were actually able to hinder on that to help with that agility and flexibility too. And I guess overall, obviously that, we're here to please our customers. That's part of our values, and customer, satisfaction is one of our, critical success factors as a business, and it's part of our overall strategy. So pleasing our customers and having really good KPIs helps with our overall customer reviews. And it just means that we have, enhanced lifetime value when we have customers wanting to come back to us because they know that they can trust us, and that's critical.
Couldn't agree with you more. And that's an incredible step up and scale up you suddenly have to do from November to December, where in that 1 month you've got 75% of your revenues going through the tills. That's just incredible. In your experience, Anna, how important do you think it is for marketing and ops to be aligned to ensure a successful peak?
It's absolutely critical in my view. It's almost circular. So we're lucky enough in our organisation that I actually look after sales and marketing as well as operations. So I have kind of a view on all sides. So just coordinating the forecasting of the sales with the forecasting of the carriers, and just ensuring that's all linked from an operational perspective, but also making sure that from an ops side that the customer promise is absolutely vital to ensuring lifetime value for our customers. So in instilling that trust and that loyalty within our customers, and that customer service is vital for our whole overall health and wealth of the business. Lifetime value is one of our, again, is huge for us. So ensuring that ops can deliver on, and have the right people and processes and partners in place to deliver on our customer promises helps our overall, business success. So it's twofold. So it's ensuring that marketing and sales are involved in sharing with ops their plans, but also making sure that ops have the right partners in place to deliver on the promises to ensure we have great customer outcomes.
Absolutely. And like you said, with such a huge percentage of your revenues riding on peak, how ready and confident are you feeling about peak, and why?
So I'm really confident about this peak. Last year we had probably the best peak we've actually ever had as a business. It went completely smoothly. Our on-time delivery rate was 97%. We absolutely smashed our customer reviews. Our targets went up. So for me, it's a case of just making sure that we replicate last year and everything that we did last year. So we haven't really changed anything from an operations side. So making sure that we still have that really great relationship with GFS. Still, we're not far away now from our first meeting to go through our forecasts.
Yeah.
We've done them internally, so securing that piece. So I feel confident. We're strong with our forecasts so far this year, and I feel that we've got the right plans now in place to really smash it this peak.
And what about contingency? Because like you've said, I've heard you say before, you've got your forecasts, your plans, but it's also so vital to have your contingency plans, and you can't always, anticipate every single thing that can go wrong. So how do you feel about contingency? Where do you stand with contingency this year?
Yeah, so very much the same as last year. It's we have various contingency plans. So the way we forecast and the way we buy our products enables us to mitigate any risks and potential reduction or in sales that we might see. So we kind of we plan that over the course of peak. Obviously, working with our partners like GFS, that really helps with knowing you've got trusted people, that if we did something went wrong, that that there's past proven evidence that there's people that can help us. So whether it's additional volume, additional support with any 3PL or any logistics, so we've got partners there that help us. And then yeah, and the teams, I guess we've also got a team of people that are now have been here a few Christmases, who kind of know the risks and pitfalls and how to see them coming, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Hannah, thank you so much for coming in today, because I know that you're in the thick of forecasting, but I could only think of you when we were thinking delivery excellence. What does that look like? The first customer that came to mind for us was hampers.com, because you guys absolutely smash it. And I really hope and feel quite confident that you're going to smash your sales again this year, and get your customer reviews as good as they were last year as
Yeah.
well, if not better. So thanks a lot, Hannah, and best of luck with Peak.
Thank you so much.
Right, okay, it's over to you guys in the audience with some Q&A. I've got one question here that's coming. I think it might be for you, Al. Who do you see as the winners and losers for Black Friday this year? Or let's just say for Peak
Yeah.
2024.
I think we covered it earlier in the presentation, and I think really it's those that, the old cliche, isn't it? Fail to plan, plan to fail. So I think it's really those
Yes.
that have a really clear plan, understand who their customers are, have really done that analysis on different customer types, and have planned accordingly. I mean,
Mm.
I think many people could say, well, what do you find as a winner? I think for me, it is a business that trades really well, but still makes good margin, rather than, we can all be busy fools and give everything away for no margin, but I'm not sure that's
Yeah,
sustainable. So I
yeah,
think for me, it's who has really bought well, made good profit, and made good margin on these promotions, and executed that seamlessly, or as well as they possibly can, from a buying to marketing to a great customer experience when the product's delivered to their
yeah,
door. I think for me, that's
absolutely.
that's the real winners.
Yeah, yeah.
Loser, probably going to sound harsh in it, but I think those that just wing it.
Don't do
Some
all
of
of
them
the
may do
above.
well. Some of them may do well, but is it, how repeatable is it? How sustainable is it in terms of, we haven't really covered the green element of things,
Mm.
but how sustainable is it from a work point of view, in terms of it sort of being chaotic, and some of it, when you've been there and got the stripes, you know how painful it can be.
Yeah.
But also I think there is that slow growing trend, is there now, of trying to spread this peak out, making it more sustainable
Mm.
both for team but also for the environment.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes. We're seeing a lot more uptake and demand on green delivery services,
Yeah.
and a lot more awareness around consumer awareness around sustainability.
Yes.
Um, I would say it's quite similar in terms of winners and losers from an operational delivery perspective. Is very similar. What you said, not plan, not planning is planning to fail, or whatever the adage is. It's so true,
Yeah.
and absolutely applicable when it comes to delivery. So in our experience, the winners are going to be those that have built their robust forecasts and plans in terms of what they're going to need around capacity, for fulfillment and also for delivery, but also have done their scenario contingency planning, the what if scenarios. What if this happens, what if that happens, what's our plan going to be then. And the last thing I would say is, no matter how much you plan, you or how much you plan, whether that's forecast or work contingency, you still need to be confident that you're working with a carrier partner that's going to have your back, because the unexpected always happens. And in those situations, you need to be confident that you can trust your carrier partner, that they're going to be proactive in being able to find solutions for you, so that you can get that parcel delivered to where it needs to be on time and secure that sale.
Yeah, I was actually just reflecting when you were saying that about, there could still be more challenges in the Red Sea. Um,
Yes, yeah,
you know,
supply, yeah, absolutely.
how what happens if people are waiting for these offers to come in, and then suddenly the ships are another 10 days round? So that is a possibility right now. And
Yeah, it's
some
definitely a
retailers are
risk.
saying to me the
Yeah,
container prices are going up. So there is always a dynamic and ever-changing world. And you're right, we've just got to be flexible and nimble. But knowing that you've got the right partners with you, I think really shows in times of adversity.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's when they can really prove their value.
Absolutely.
Um, so there's another one. What do you consider as best practice? How many delivery options should be offered to customers? Okay, so the research from Retail Economics, when they did this, showed that consumers expect to have at least 5 delivery options. So not just what we typically see in most cases when we're working with retailers, they've all got economy, they've all got free, they've all got express. But what consumers expect to see is a lot more of the premium options, and the benchmark is around 5 delivery options. So yes, have your free, yes, have your economy and your express, but make sure that you've also got nominated day, click and collect, um, nominated time, those kind of delivery options. And the surprising thing from the research is that not only to have the right breadth and mix of delivery options, but in many cases, consumers are willing to pay for them. So why give money away if you don't have to? Offer these options, but also offer them at cost or even with a margin on top of that if you prefer. But certainly, 5 is the benchmark. Make sure you've got premium options on top of the standard options that you expect to see, and don't be shy to charge for those options as well.
I would completely concur. I remember having
Yeah.
a strong debate with a CFO where they were going to try and save X amount of pence per parcel if they used one of the budget couriers.
Mm,
And I had to sort of be quite firm in pushing back and saying, I, I just don't have the trust in those. Or
yeah.
sometimes they're great, but in peak, often that's where who falls apart. And I think the challenge there is it's a hidden or non-visible cost in terms of the amount of phone calls that go into customer service to deal with where's my parcel.
Yeah, it's a
It,
hidden cost on many levels. One is the increased pressure on your customer service team, having to deal with increased, like you said, where's my parcel?
and
But
it's a decreasing
also,
spiral at that point as well, isn't it? Because then they're busy,
absolutely,
so then they're
yeah,
slower at responding, so then
yeah,
people get more. It's a
yeah.
real challenge. Yeah,
It is a real challenge, but also even before that customer has committed to making the purchase and press the buy button, the delivery options you offer them at checkout is going to make or break that sale. So if they see that they don't have those delivery options that they can trust, then the likelihood is they're going to abandon their basket at that point. And we know that from the research, in that 1 in 4 baskets get abandoned precisely due to delivery
yeah,
options being inadequate.
yeah.
So a very, very important point there. I think this is the last question is a good one to sort of wrap up on, Al, because it's
Okay.
and we can both, let me ask you it first and then I'll give you my view on it. What kind of peak are you expecting to see this year?
I mean, that's almost like I could retire and go on the to the
Yeah.
Caribbean if I can get this right.
If you had,
Um,
yeah, if you had a crystal ball.
yeah, if I had a crystal ball, I mean, I think was there been 72 elections in the world this year by the time we get to the end of the year.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of change, and I suppose in the recent news of that of who we thought was going to be uh, in the American election races is changed. So and that's what November. So I still think there's a lot of sort of there's not the world isn't per se that settled. So
Mm,
and I think as we talked at the beginning of this session, there is still pressure right now in terms of interest rates, cost of living.
yeah. Yeah.
So do I think it's going to be an out and out stellar? No, but I think again, I think this is why it's really important to work with the buying team to find good products, know what's in demand, or know what's a good product for you, and
Yes.
curate good offers. I think,
Yeah.
and make margin. I mean, I think. you remember the early days of people fighting, was it in Asda Walmart over a TV because it was such a mega deal? You don't see that as much these days. It just is almost a bit like this is just another photo period. So, but
Yeah,
I still think there's winners and losers, and I still think it's important. Um, you know, you we were referencing hamper. That's such a key period for them, for the
yeah,
hampers to be done. So I think, yeah, you as your own retailer will know what's important for you and how well you need to trade. I think it's just really more the focus needs to be on, can you make it a stellar period for you, rather than
absolutely.
is it
Yeah.
going to be a stellar period.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that whilst there's indicators that, consumer confidence is going up and that's all positive and optimistic, the reality is that households are still feeling the financial pressure because whilst inflation may be coming down, those interest rates are still biting into people's pockets and they're not letting up. So the research shows that this means that it's hitting our core spenders, those that typically would be buying more and buying more often and maybe even higher purchase values online. They are the ones that are feeling the pinch very much so now because they've got much higher mortgage rates and interest rates. And consequently, it means that they're going to be very cautious about what they're buying and also looking for value. So getting, like you said, Al, getting those understanding your customers and what promotions to target them with and curating your offers and all of that is going to be absolutely vital because I think competition is going to be is still really tough out there. So retailers are going to have to really fight for every penny that they manage to get. So I think peak this year is going to be similar to last year because last year was quite flat. This year, I think we're going to see a similar shape in that Black Friday is going to pull a lot of spending forward into campaigns going early, beginning of November. That means that we're not going to see a huge spike come the last Thursday in November, which is the Black Friday sales. So we're going to see spending happening early, but we're not going to see peaks. It's going to be pretty flat and consistent. And then we'll see a second peak just before Christmas, as we always do with last minute distress purchases. People like me, Al, forgetting to buy presents, suddenly having to get online and find those presents.
Yeah.
So I think I am cautiously optimistic about the outlook being more positive, but also very, very aware that retailers really need to have their A game on.
Yeah.
Not just in terms of marketing, but delivery as well. All of that, as you said, to get a stellar performance, don't be complacent and make sure everything is joined up, your marketing, your delivery, because that customer, as far as they're concerned, that journey starts from the point of them discovering you, whether that's from on Google search or whatever, coming to your website, getting them through that conversion at the checkout, making sure the delivery options are all right, etc., and then making sure that that post-purchase experience is absolutely seamless.
Yeah, I think I completely. I think one of the things, just reflecting on last year as well, is we saw sort of the knickknacks is probably not the right term for it, but there's sort of the impulse buys were a lot lower.
Yeah.
Sort of your 5, your 10, your 15 stocking fillers. That I
Yeah.
think we saw that a lot less. So I think people still bought well last year. I mean, I didn't see a massive drop in average order values, but the volume is where that we saw.
Volume
So
has
people
dropped.
bought
Yeah.
nice product, but not but I would say that the overall spend was down. But the key gifts were still are at the similar AOV. But I think the sort of the impulse buys, the little knickknacks for the stocking stuff, I think for me that's where it took more of a hit. So it'd be interesting to see, again, in this cautious world where people are conscious of money, whether they still buy as much of that stuff or whether they still just focus in on key gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I think that brings us to an end of this webinar. Al, as always, I love talking with you, and I think that hopefully you guys out there, our listeners, have managed to take some good nuggets of information away. And hopefully when you go back to your desks, you're going to be, we'll be seeing marketing and operations sitting around the table. So, are you ready to beat peak? Hopefully, the answer to that is a resounding yes. But if it's not, don't panic because we've still got time. If you have any questions or concerns around delivery or your marketing campaigns and promotions, then don't worry. We are offering everybody on this webinar a 30-minute obligation-free consultation with GFS or with Infinity Nation. So please look out for the emails that will be coming out after the webinar. You'll have all the details on there about the offer and how you can take advantage of that. So please do get in contact. So finally, thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you from myself and from Al. And here's wishing you all a successful peak.